I'm back. Day 81. There's some sort of query whether I should be on day 80 or day 81. Nobody's quite sure. Or 82. Nobody's quite sure. I think I'm on day 81, but I'm not sure. Let me just go live on Instagram. But 81's fairly impressive anyway, isn't it? 81 days. I'm at makeup free. Look at me. I've just rushed in to do the live because I'm putting up a bed in my bedroom that I'm in the process of decorating, and I was putting a bed up. So I've come rushing in, having spoken to one of our lovely pros, Lisa, regarding one of her wonderful rehabs. And she's going to come on the live tomorrow evening with Gary, and she's going to talk all through it with us because she's had another set of x-rays and it's very exciting stuff. Okay, so today I'm going to build on yesterday, and we're going to be talking about something that many of us have witnessed and maybe even experienced ourselves when hoof care turns into a battlefield. Why does something as practical and should be biological as trimming hooves suddenly turns into a war of words, digging in of heels, and lots of defensive reactions? So it nicely follows on from what we were talking about yesterday and trolling online, etc. So I wanted to explore with you what's really going on beneath the surface when people get protective about their trimming approach. We see it all the time. And more importantly, how we move from that defensiveness, which is transposed right the way down the line to owners and other pros, etc., and how we turn that defensiveness into curiosity, from clinging to old, outdated methods that people still think are relevant, and for them to open up and go, well, actually, because I tell you something, 100%, every single hoof care practitioner on this planet, it doubts themselves. Luckily, we've surpassed that now and we don't doubt ourselves anymore. But for many years of my early years of trimming, I did. And everybody does, because you're never quite sure whether you're doing the right thing. And that's crazy. And that's because there is such a lack of standards. So we are trying to stop people from clinging to actual methods and start listening to the horse. Because if we stop listening to the horse, which we have done, and that's what's got us into all of this mess, that's when we start having major issues. Right, so let's say hello. Who have we got? We've got Kay, top of the shop. Hello, Kay Ellison. Camilla's here. Hey, good evening from Dawn. Suzanne Scheid's here. Melanie's here. Hello, having one very dramatic lightning. Oh, are you? Oh, I love that. Becky Harding. Hello. Alex is here. Jeanette's here. Hi, everyone. Susie Pemberton's here. Undercover Carnivore's here. Angela Moore's here. Good to see you. Tara's here. Teresa's here. Viv Avery's here. And Kathy Yorkshire Lass is here. Great. Oh, and Cindy. Hello, my darling. I can't wait to see you. And I don't think I think in my head I replied to you, but you're coming to the workshop, please, because I can't wait to see you. Tractor Nature's here as well. Okay, right. We're talking about why when hoof care becomes a battlefield. It seems that trimming becomes far more than a skill nowadays. It's actually more of an identity. And people have a big emotional investment, financial too, in many cases, but a huge emotional investment behind the methods that they use. So let's get right to the heart of it, shall we? Hoof care isn't just a technical thing. It is an emotional thing for many people, for many trimmers and for many farriers. Their approach to trimming for them feels more than a method. They are willing to die on that hill with their trimming method. That is not following Mother Nature's constants, and that doesn't seem to matter to them. They don't seem to feel that that's even an issue. And this is because it's how they've been trained. It's what they've built their business on, and it's what has given them credibility it's given them some confidence, and it's given them a sense of mastery over the method that they have. And you'll hear Gary and I talking about muscle memory all the time, and how difficult it is for professionals who have done it one way, even for owners, to change and start reading the horse's foot properly and what the horse is trying to tell you. So when we talk about what we're talking about, and trimming to the HSP, and trimming to the natural constants and natural parameters, Mother Nature's blueprint, all of those phrases that we use, we are effectively questioning their approach, aren't we? When we are saying that rotation, osteonecrosis, penetration are all hoof care issues, we are questioning their method. And we are suggesting also that it might be harming rather than helping. Now, when that starts coming out, that is going to be incredibly challenging and confronting for people. So consequently, what you're doing is you're challenging their identity. And that's when things start to get tense. That's why a simple, well-meaning question like, why did you remove that toe pillar? Or have you considered that heel height might be driving the distortion? That can trigger a really big emotional reaction, and that reaction is usually way out of proportion. We've heard it many times when owners have said that if they try and challenge their hoof care professional, they lose it. You know, that's what a lot of people say. They lose it. They get shitty. They get titty. They argue, and that's not the way to be. The way to be is to be open about it and discuss why. Don't just tell. We need to discuss why this is going on, and why they are getting such an emotional reaction out of it. Just hold on one moment, please. I'm just going to shut a door. Just hold on a sec. There we go. Timmy is now putting the rest of the bed together, and he's putting all the slats in, and you might not be able to hear it, but I can. Right. So what we're talking about, we're talking about triggering that emotional reaction that feels way out of proportion. Now, when someone gets defensive about their trimming, it's often because they've been doing it that way for years, and it's uncomfortable to consider that they might have been doing it wrong. And I get that. I totally 100% get that. And I also get it when they say, well, why do you think that your method is right? And we say it time and time again, don't we? We haven't got a method. It's not a method. We're just following the horse's foot. Chopping off toes, leaving heels high, those are methods. Not following the constants of the horse's foot, those are methods. Rockering heels, removing excessively removing natural flair, those are all methods. Scooping the heels, pointing the heels, those are all methods. What we're doing isn't that. So when they've been doing it a certain way for years, they don't want to hear that they might have been doing it wrong, because they've had successes with their own limited lens, their own limited ideals of what they're doing and why they're doing it. And they will have had some successes with it, what appear to be successes. And so therefore, that makes them genuinely believe that their method is the one that's going to work. They're going to feel very attacked, and they're going to feel judged. Even if that wasn't really your intention as an owner, if you're trying to tackle this situation with a hoof care professional that you've got right now, or they've seen other changes, or they've seen others change their methods, and that makes them lose their sense of confidence, and that scares them. It really does. Nobody wants a horse to be unsound, But also, if you keep hearing people tell you that you have to take the toe off because there are going to be lever forces and it's going to tear the lamina, you daren't leave it. I've been there. I know what that feels like. You daren't leave it in fear that in a week, in a few days, the owner's going to be phoning you up and going, "Oh my God, my horse is dog lame," and you should have taken it. So people daren't. They get scared, and so they daren't do that. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that this defensiveness that we see all over our posts, and we see it sometimes in the Phoenix group, when people get incredibly defensive, it's a completely normal human response when somebody's beliefs or identity feels totally under threat. So the problem is in hoof care, because these methods are clinging to this flawed science, and out of pride or fear, because they don't want their ego hurt, unfortunately, what happens is you go on to hurt the horse. And that's the big issue. And so that's why we've always said professionals aren't going to change the world, because that most of them can't change. It will be owners that will change it. Owners who will put the stop on it. Owners who will say, no, this is not, you're not going to do that to my horse. So we have this real battlefield going on in the equine world, not human to human. We've got horse versus method. That's the battle that's going on. It's the hoof versus all the different ideologies. So the battlefield isn't really between me and another professional who is doing it PPT. It isn't that. It's between the natural hoof, because that's what we are, backing, and then the rigid methods that are being forced upon it. So it's the hoof. The poor hoof is just doing what it was designed to do. It's growing, it's adapting, it's responding to pressure, it's responding to movement and the trim that it receives. But too often, people are trying to force the hoof into their idea of what it should be, instead of asking, what's the hoof trying to tell me? What does the hoof need? What are those anatomical constants telling me? That anatomical constants that HM keep going on about. What are those? Am I helping this horse, or am I hindering function? And of course, so many times we've talked about this many times, where so many will choose form over function. They just can't deal with a foot that looks a little bit out of what they think is ideal. And that's a big problem, especially for us as rehab specialists, when we're rehabbing all the errors that were made because of all those ideologies. So as much as we would love to say we need to stop fighting each other and start fighting for the horse, that's not going to happen when you have people saying that they're fighting for the horse, but they're not actually following what the horse is showing them, because they daren't, just in case the horse might be wrong, which of course is ridiculous, but that's what happens. Whereas we, of course, are fighting absolutely 100% for the horse to be heard, for the horse's hooves to be heard. Because the truth really is that the hoof doesn't care what school you went to. The hoof doesn't care who you've spoken to online. The hoof doesn't care who you got into an argument with. It doesn't care what technique you were taught. It only responds to function, balance, and biological truths. And if you're not following those things, function, balance, and biological truths, you will go against the hoof and you will fight the hoof. And that's not what we're in it for. We're not in it to be fighting the hoof, are we? Let's have a little shout out, a few more people to speak to. Alex Marr on Instagram. Iowa Cross Countries is here. Tim's here. Turner. Kathy Schofield's here. Igor, Miranda, Davet's here. Formentera Water Horses has joined as well. Hello. Let's have a look who else we've got here. Jenny Ackerstrom's here. Anne Chopra's here. Hello. Sarah's here. Monica's here from Czech. Ali Halfpenny's here. Jackie's here. Hi, everyone from sunny Scotland. It's good to see you. Susan says, hello, watching during lunch break at work. How lovely. How lovely. Angie Medler's here. Lydia says, hi all from a winter wonderland in Ontario, Canada. Oh, we'll be there in August in Ontario. I'm so excited. For those of you waiting so patiently and probably getting frustrated about the fact that you haven't got the booking form through yet, it is done. So it will be out in the next 24 hours. It is sorted. Jessie's just turned up. Hello, Potty. Good morning. Hi from New Zealand, says Lisa Giles. Okay, so how do we move? How do we, because we are going through a massive paradigm shift. It's huge. It will be the biggest shock that will shake the foundations of the equine world ever. It is the biggest thing that is ever going to come out when finally the world works out that all that blaming of laminitis rotation, systemic laminitis rotation, penetration, osteonecrosis on systemic disease is actually caused by incorrect hoof care. That will be the biggest, craziest change in that the equine world and shock waves that the equine world will ever experience, I believe. We have to somehow, and it's not easy because we are dealing with horses in pain every single day. It comes into us from owners and it comes into us from our pros. Every day we are dealing with a horrible situation where a pony, a horse, a donkey is in agony and they can't stand up, and the owner doesn't know what to do, and they're close to putting the horse to sleep, and the horse has been the equine's been really suffering. So for us it's very difficult to and I particularly find it quite difficult, hence the reason why I put quite a lot of pokey posts. I find it difficult when people just put their blinkers up and they just don't even want to listen, because all they keep shouting at us is stop it, stop it, stop it, listen back to us. But I can't do that anymore because I've been there and done that and it doesn't work. This is why we've got such a lot of pain and suffering in the world. It would be lovely to think that we could find a way out of this particular pattern of defensiveness and conflict. I fear, however, that is not going to happen anytime soon. And it's really simple. The answer is just one word. It's just curiosity. They've just got to get curious. They've just got to get curious, but they daren't. If they have been doing this all that, just imagine, let's say you're a hoof care professional and on your books, you have had rotation, penetration, horses put to sleep. You want to believe it's some mythical systemic disease that caused it. You don't want to think that you were the one who caused it. But that's the truth. And for those who haven't gone that far down the line, they are apt to become curious. But for those that have, they don't want to hear it. They just want to put the blinkers on and tell us to shut up and hope that we'll quieten down and not keep going on about it. And I suppose, when you, the owner, are dealing with this situation, it's the kind of questions that you ask, I suppose, that we've spoken about this before, haven't we? And their questions should be questioning themselves. They should be getting curious about why they're doing what they're doing, not just blindly following it because somebody told them to do it. And everything won't be a success, without a doubt, because that's not real life. So they will be doubting themselves, and they should be asking themselves what is actually really happening when they trim the way that they do. What is actually happening when you take the toes off, when you leave the heels high, when you don't take as much, you leave bar. We've told them that all sorts of horrible things begin to happen in the horse's foot, and that's what they should start thinking. Am I adding to that issue? They should be thinking, what does the horse's movement say about the hoof's function? What are their landings like? Am I just going to blindly believe that all horses should be landing heel first when I see so many horses landing flat that have incredibly good feet, particularly back feet, and they land flat? Why are we not getting curious about that? Why are you not getting curious about the fact that this mythical systemic laminitis, well, I say mythical, we know that horses get systemic issues, but the mythical link to rotation, we should be getting curious and asking why it only happens sometimes in one foot, why it happens in both front feet and not the back, why both front feet will be rotated differently. And then we need to look at the hooves and go, well, actually, that's interesting because the horse that's got more rotation has got higher heels. It's very easy. Vets could just walk around with a little gauge and measure the heels. And then they go, well, that's an interesting link, isn't it? What a turn up. I mean, I can't believe here we are in 2025 and we're even discussing this, but it is where we are. It is where we're at. Why does a horse get laminitis in one hind foot? It's just they need to get curious about why those things are happening. That's how I ended up where I am right now, and why I ended up talking to you right now, where I am here right now. I ended up like this because I have a very annoying, curious mind. It wakes me up at 5:30 in the morning, and I find myself writing things down because I want to know the answers. So, we need to be looking at sustainability, future soundness for these horses. Somebody asked me on the Melbourne workshop how many successes we get, and we said 100%. And that sounds incredibly incredible. Like, it can't be true, but it is, and there are some caveats to that, as long as the horse hasn't got shocking osteonecrosis and arthritis, and that the owner is on board. Other than that, penetration, rotate, bring it on. We fix them all the time. We've got to start realizing that just shoring a foot up, just as to make it aesthetically pleasing, so that aesthetic trim is not what's going to give that horse sustainability going forward when it comes to soundness. And they have to genuinely think, and people put this in a box. Have I let the ego get in the way of the evidence? Don't let ego get in the way of evidence. And for you as owners, your role is very, very powerful. It's incredibly powerful, but it will only become so if you learn to read the hoof yourself. Even if you can't do it, you need to learn to read the hoof yourself, so that you can ask those you can ask respectful questions, but you can ask clear questions. And then if your hoof care professional starts throwing his tools about, getting defensive, yelling and bawling, don't back down. Don't you back down when they don't back down. But you must remain curious all the time. You must be always asking questions and remain curious, because change doesn't happen when we get attacked or when we attacked. It happens when we illuminate what's possible. And although many of our posts do appear like we're attacking, we are trying to, if you read what we're saying, we're trying to illuminate and make people curious as to, hang on a minute, what you're saying. So hang on, you're telling me that the grass didn't cause P3 to rotate? This is exactly what we're saying. P3 is not suspended in the capsule the way that Pollitt thought it was. And unfortunately, until the world is, and they've never been able to prove it. And I've talked to you about this so many times. They haven't got the sequential historical photographs, videos, x-rays. In fact, there's no standardization in taking photographs in hoof care. X-rays there are, but there's not in photographs. So you get a right mishmash of appalling photos to go with these x-rays, and they're rubbish. And people just expect you to just there you go. Here's a shocking photo coupled with an x-ray and taken at completely different angles, and you just got to believe me when I tell you that that's got to stop, because that's what that it just goes to show there's no foundation, no solid foundation in the equine world, because nobody's been taught to do that. Or at least, you know, you don't have to be necessarily taught how to take a photograph, but a good photograph. But it's not more than that. It's being bothered to take those photographs for the future. And then when things go wrong, you should have been able to look back at your photographs, and when you've got a horse with rotation on your books, and go, yeah, I can see how that happened. The heels have started going up, and then you get curious and start to learn. But for too many professionals, it's too painful. They don't want to go there. They really don't want to experience that. Dawn says, I never realized how many methods there were until I started researching. Oh my God, yeah. But they're all based on a particular theme, though, and all based on certain incorrect information that you hear. She says, I thought there was only the traditional way, but even in that, there are so many different opinions. Absolutely. And they all argue all the time. They argue over palmar angles. They argue over dorsal wall angles, you know, whether P3 should be ground parallel, how many degrees it should have in the palmar angle. They argue about the sole depth, the bars, the heels, the toe. It goes on. And the reason they all argue is because nobody is starting at the base foundation level of the natural foot. They're starting on some nothing to do with the natural foot. Melanie says, I was personally attacked on a few social media sites. I just tried to take it all in my stride. My horse is better, end of story. And those people aren't going to change how I care for my horses now. Absolutely. And that is important. That's really important. You need to stay strong, and you need to know that your truth is right there in front of you. Just like I said yesterday when we were talking about online trolling, that's not the truth. Online isn't your truth. Your truth is right there in the barn or on the tracks with the other horses. That's your truth, because that's what you have managed to create, that sustainability for your horse, Melanie, because you brought her back from an incredibly serious situation that was life-threatening for her. And you did it. Michelle is here. Hello, howdy. So today's takeaway, it's a bit shorter this little one. I said it's shorter, it's half an hour. Today's takeaway, I think when hoof care turns into I say when, it already is a battlefield. We always need to remember it's not about hooves. It's not about the hooves. It's about identity. It's about fear, and it's about discomfort. Not of the horse, of the human. None of that matters a jot to the horse. None of it matters. They don't care about ego. They don't care about reputations. They don't care about any of it. All they care about is that when somebody picks up some tools and picks up their foot, they respect what that horse is trying to grow, and they respect the balance. And they don't just go hell for leather, chopping the toe off, or just it. I mean, I feel for them. I feel for these horses who just, if only they could talk. I tell you, if only horses can talk. And of course, they can if you're prepared to watch and you're prepared to listen. The equine world isn't prepared to evolve, but it is going to. It is going to evolve. We are going to make sure that it does. It doesn't want to. It's going to come kicking and screaming, throwing its dummies out the pram and yelling and bawling, but we will get there, because it will be self-evident in the end, because we will have more sequential information, more sequential proof than anybody else in the world. You know, it's all very well having just a tiny bit of proof and 3 or 4 photos and a few x-rays, but we're talking years of photographs and x-rays where we can show you the rehab process going on, and we can therefore show you the reverse of what is happening with these horses, why they get into these awful states in the first place. So we are willing to evolve. I've been willing to evolve. The equine world is stuck. It's still stuck. And in order to let go of methods that aren't working, people have to be honest with themselves. And above all, they've got to start listening to the hoof more than listening to their peers or tradition. So for today's mini challenge, where are you in your hoof care journey, either as an owner or a pro? Have you seen that defensiveness show up? Have you had those defensive conversations? Are people just, again, you're attacking, well, not attacking, but by the very fact that we're saying what we're saying about following the natural constants means that it attacks their methods, their identity. Did you get defensive? Did somebody else get defensive? And what might curiosity have changed in that moment? Instead of just getting defensive, if the screens came down and suddenly they just went ping and got curious, what could have changed? So much could have changed. So much could have changed decades ago. But they just all followed what the textbooks were saying. And the textbooks got it wrong because the textbooks didn't have any proof. It was a big dollop of assumption. So share your thoughts, and you know, write it down. Self-awareness really in this game is where real change begins. And that is something that I have really had to deal with over the years. Like I said, I used to get it wrong a lot. I mean, not as bad as some, but I have been there. And it's not pleasant. Dawn says I had a vet and farrier discussing my horse years ago, and they really didn't want me listening. I need to tweak my horse's trim, says Anne. Get on then. Off we go. It's a bit cold out there at the moment. Suzanne Baker says, I let my current trimmer go in January when he had winter laminitis. She wanted to do traditional cut the toe. I found Lindsay in this group and I took over E's care. Both challenges are completed. And you're doing a marvelous job, by the way. I saw that you'd put a post up. I will go and have a look. But again, isn't it crazy that this is what you have to do? You have to take over because you can't trust what they're going to do. Becky says it's so sad that people's egos come from the horse's comfort. We see it every single day online, don't we? We read it in our group, in our students group. It is really rough. Okay, so we're going to say goodbye. Thank you for being with me today. And I genuinely am so grateful that you're coming on this journey with me. We've already done 81 days. We're not quite sure whether it's 81 or 82. We've already done all of those days, and we are not even halfway yet to achieving the challenge that we wanted to achieve. But we are making people curious. We're making owners curious, even though we know that pros are going to struggle with it. These conversations aren't easy, but they're essential, because we can't create a better future for our horses unless we're willing to examine the present honestly. We have to examine now honestly. And people say, oh, it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me cringe. I don't like it. It's not meant for everyone. Not everybody can challenge and be confronting and confront and feel confronted. So we need to examine what's going on right now. And if we don't, many more horses will die. And if we don't examine it now, at some point in the future, somebody will. There'll be another me or another Gary. There will be somebody in the future who will stand up again and say, we've got to stop this. I would love to just say, can we just lay down our swords and let's start just picking up the tools and start listening, learning, and truly reading the hoof. But unfortunately, that's not what people with methods want to do. They just want to carry on supporting their own reputation, sadly their own ego. So until next time, thank you very much. Thank you for liking, following, sharing, subscribing on the YouTube channel. We're nearly at 3,000. Yay! Thank you so much for being with me and being on this journey together, this journey of discovery, because the Phoenix Way is about supporting each other and about going on that journey of how to truly read the horse's hoof. So until next time, till tomorrow, take care of yourself. Double live tomorrow, double live day. Take care of yourself and your horse. I'll see you soon. Bye bye. See you tomorrow. Bye.